Now, this third generation of the Nissan Note E13 is currently going for a whooping 1.9 to around 2 million shillings. That's a significant chunk of money to cough out for a subcompact hatchback. But again, when you look at what it offers, it seems like an incredibly good car. In fact, good enough that it may sway some people away from the dominant Mazda 2, the diesel variant in particular. But now the price of the E13 is quite steep, so should you just get the Demio diesel or cough out an extra around 400,000 and get the newer E13? That's what we will be finding out in today's episode, courtesy of the many requests from you, our viewers. We will go as in-depth as possible to help you make the right decision in terms of selecting one of these cars so that you can have a very stress-free ownership experience. So kindly stick around, tighten your seatbelts and make sure you watch till the end so as not to miss any information. Welcome to Ekevoto Reviews, and as always, if you find this content helpful, please do consider subscribing to the channel for more informative content on cars and bikes. So the Note E13 has been in production since 2020 till present. That's the third generation, while the Mazda 2 2020 model has been in production from 2014 till present. And that's also the third generation. Now, under the hood of the Nissan Note E13 is a series hybrid powertrain. And by the way, for this particular generation, there's no non-hybrid. All the options are hybrid, series hybrid to be precise. It basically means that the engine acts as a generator. So the engine will run to charge the lithium-ion battery, which will power up the electric motor, which will then drive the wheels via a single-speed constant ratio transmission. The most common engine option is the HR12DE 1200cc 3-cylinder plus the EM47 electric motor, specifically for the front-wheel drive variants. The power output is on 16 horsepower and 20 newton meters of torque. Then the all-wheel drive variants have an additional electric motor at the rear, coded the MM48, which adds about 67 horsepower and 100 newton meters of torque. Now, those are pretty decent power figures considering the size of the car as well as what the competitors offer. In fact, even the front-wheel drive variants feel powerful. Power is instant and the car picks up speed quite fast, especially from a standstill. This car will easily smoke even cars above its class easily because of that instant torque. The other engine option is the KR15DDT 1500cc e-power hybrid turbo 3-cylinder, though it's rare, so we're not going to focus so much on it, but it's way more powerful compared to the HR12. In terms of the engine oil to be used in this car, what is recommended is fully synthetic oil, API 0W20 or 0W16 after around 5,000 to 800,000 kilometers. Though I will just recommend 5,000 kilometers to keep the engine running smoothly and in good health. In terms of the transmission, this car gets a single speed constant ratio, or you could also call it an electric drive unit. It's actually not the conventional transmission or even a CVT. It's different, but it still requires fluid change so as to manage wear from the high torque, and the recommended fluid by Nissan is genuine Nissan Matic S, or you could even use an alternative such as the Shell Spirax S6. Now, after around how long should you change this fluid? To be safe, do the change after around 30,000 kilometers. Generally, this e-power system produces high torque, and that is why it's important to change the fluid regularly so as to remove the metal particles accumulated from the reduction gear. And please just stick to the recommended fluid. Do not use CVTF in this car. I repeat, do not use CVTF in the Nissan Note E13 e-Power. Something else very important that I should point out is that, being that this is an electric car, there are areas where water should not get in. So you should avoid deep flooded roads because the lithium-ion batteries sit under the floor, and in case water breaches the high voltage battery casing, it can cause damage to the electrical connectors and hybrid system. Water can also damage the inverter and motor systems and consequently lead to very expensive repairs, probably in the tune of hundreds of thousands. Now, for those who may not know, the inverter is an electronic power management unit system that converts DC power from the lithium-ion battery into AC power to run the EM47 electric motor. The same inverter is also important when it comes to regenerative braking. So when you lift your foot from the accelerator or when braking, the inverter converts AC power generated by the motor back into DC to charge the battery. It may sound complicated, but it's in fact a very reliable system. Even the engine in itself is very reliable, but as I've said, be very careful with deep flooded roads, because if this system fails, it will cost an arm and a leg to repair. As for efficiency, this car is simply incredible. You can get up to around 33 kilometers per liter or even more depending on how you drive. That's just excellent. In fact, in terms of hybrids, it's better than even the Toyota Aqua. On to the Mazda 2 diesel. It comes with a 1500cc Sky Active D 4-cylinder turbo that churns out around 105 horsepower plus 250 Newton meters of torque. It may not be as powerful as the Nissan Note, but it's still decently powerful, though the Note will smoke it anytime, any day. It's available in either front or all-wheel drive. In terms of reliability, this engine is good, but there are two things that can compromise its reliability. The first one is dirty diesel and the second is poor quality oil. In fact, substandard oil can easily kill the turbo, so do take note of that. And speaking of the oil, the recommended one is Mazda Original Oil 5W30, or maybe an alternative like Castrol Edge 5W30. Something else that can give a slight headache is the DPF, diesel particulate filter. I expounded on that when I reviewed the CX-5 diesel, but in a nutshell, the DPF is meant to burn off soot, which is harmful to the environment. So it requires that after some time you drive for a slightly long journey so that the DPF can burn off the excess soot. Otherwise, that DPF may clog, and if it's serious, you may even need to replace it. What I normally advise is that you just delete it once and for all so as to avoid any future issues. Deleting it should cost roughly around 20 to around 25,000 shillings. Then another issue that is common with the diesels is carbon buildup, whereby carbon deposits on the injectors, valves, and pistons, which may lead to rough idling, rattling, and even loss of power. Aside from those issues, if you just take good care of this car and do the fluid changes at the right time and use the genuine ones as well as good quality diesel, then it can be reliable. The transmission options are either a 6-speed manual or automatic with the same 6 ratios. Both are extremely reliable and smooth to operate. The recommended ATF is Mazda ATF FZ. Remember, this is a proper conventional automatic with even paddle shifts that can enable you to cycle through the 6 gears, which are, by the way, quite responsive. What about fuel consumption? It's a diesel, so it's efficient. Expect around 25 kilometers per liter, which is good, but the Nissan Note is just excellent. The Note has a 36-liter fuel tank capacity, while the Mazda 2 has a larger 44-liter tank capacity. In terms of suspension, both cars get McPherson struts at the front. Then at the back, they both get torsion beams, with the exception of the all-wheel drive variants of the Nissan Note, which get independent rear suspension so as to fit the rear electric motor. Generally, both cars are comfortable, but there's just something about the Nissan Note. It's a bit more comfortable. Nissan just have a way of tuning their suspensions in such a way that their cars always feel very comfortable compared to the competitors. In terms of the ground clearance, they both fall below the recommended 165mm clearance. The Note measures 130mm, while the Mazda 2 is slightly better at 155mm. Again, as I've always said, don't bother with modifying the suspension because it will affect the ride and handling of these vehicles. Just install slightly larger wheels and you'll be done. That will slightly increase the clearance. The carb weight of the Nissan Note measures between 1190 to 1220 kgs, while the Mazda 2 between 1050 to 1115 kgs. Stopping power in both cars is made possible by ventilated discs at the front and drums at the back. Now, what about safety? These being modern vehicles, they are kitted to the brim with modern active safety features. The Nissan Note gets a total of 7 airbags, ABS, EBD, traction control, 360 degrees parking camera, high beam assist, intelligent emergency braking, lane keeping assist, and an electronic parking brake with auto hold function. The Mazda 2 on the other hand gets 6 airbags, dynamic stability control, traction control, emergency stop signal, hill assist, ABS, EBD, blind spot detection, rear cross traffic alert, auto high beams, and parking sensors. Most of these features are standard across the trim levels, but some are only available in higher trim levels. Now, in terms of the price, 2020 Nissan Note will set you back a whopping 1.9 to around 2 million shillings. That's quite a huge chunk of money to pay for a Nissan Note, but we will talk about value for money shortly. The Mazda 2, on the other hand, will set you back between 1.35 million to around 1.6 million, depending on the trim level and mileage. Before we wrap up, let's also quickly talk about their designs. Which one do you think looks the part? Do let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I will say the Nissan Note E13 has really improved compared to the E12. It looks bigger and sharper. The rear design particularly looks quite appealing. That said, I still think the Mazda 2 still looks better. Moving on into the interior, there is now no doubt that the Nissan is better. It looks fresh and futuristic. In fact, it makes the Mazda 2's interior start feeling a bit dated. Though in terms of the premiumness of the interior quality of materials, the Mazda 2 still feels a bit better. In terms of space, the Nissan wins hands down. It's very spacious. In fact, if you get out of the Nissan Note, then get into the Mazda, you may feel a bit claustrophobic. That's just how spacious and airy the Nissan Note feels. Quickly on to the pros and cons, beginning with the Nissan Note. It's very spacious. It's extremely efficient, that it is one of the few hybrids that their efficiency can actually offset the battery replacement cost in the long run. There's also the advantage of instant torque that makes overtaking a breeze. It is very safe, it's comfortable and feature loaded as well. Lastly, there is less engine stress as it operates optimally to charge the battery. So that means it will be very reliable and long lasting in the long run. On to the cons. The first one is the insanely high asking price. Secondly, there is the risk of water, which can lead to very expensive repairs. There's low ground clearance. Then, as with any other hybrid, you can't run away from the issue of expensive battery replacement at some point. Those batteries can typically last up to around 10 years. Lastly, this car requires specialized expertise for the hybrid electric system. This is not a car to take to just any other mechanic. It's important to look for a proficient mechanic who is conversant with hybrids. Moving on to the Mazda 2 or Mazda Demio, it looks good, it has a premium build quality. For a diesel, it's pretty efficient, and lastly, it has good driving dynamics. In terms of the cons, it has limited interior space. There's the risk of turbo failure, especially due to poor oil or even poor servicing. Thirdly, it can also suffer from the aforementioned DPF issues. It has slightly low ground clearance, and lastly, there's the issue of carbon buildup, whereby carbon deposits on the injectors, valves, and pistons, and this can lead to rough idling or even loss of power. So now, with all that said, which car makes more sense? It's evidently clear that, going by the facts, the Nissan Note is a better car thanks to its outstanding efficiency, good interior space, and practicality, the features it has, as well as the instant torque. But now the problem is the price. With around 2 million, you can certainly get a better car. So this is what I think. If only the price will be the same as that of the Mazda 2, then I would highly recommend the Nissan Note over the Mazda 2. But if finances allow, just go ahead and get the Nissan Note E13. On the other hand, if you are on a tight budget, just get the Mazda 2. Personally, if it was my money, I would get the Mazda 2. Though there's a new kid in town that looks stunning and very futuristic, that's one car that is going to seriously dethrone the Mazda 2, and I'll be reviewing it very soon. I hope this has been helpful. Thanks a lot for watching, and do let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Which one between these two vehicles would you go for? As always, if you have any inquiries, feel free to reach me via WhatsApp or email. Thanks a lot. Stay safe, ride and drive safe, and see you in the next one.